Hello, Elke.
Hi,
You?
great. How are you?
Fine, fine. Excited. I'm really excited. Um, okay, so everybody, this is one of the best pet photographers that I know. I remember the day that I saw your work, like the first day, and I was like, this is a thing. Like people are doing this, and it was so inspiring. I remember then, after a couple of months after that, um, a client showed me the image of your dog with the bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, can we do this? And I was like, I have no idea if I can do that because everything looked like so perfect. And until now, you've been like a really I've been having a lot of admiration for you and your work. And then we saw each other at Shatterhound, and it was amazing. So I'm really happy that you say yes to talk to me here.
Yeah, sure. I was really happy for the invitation, and the admiration is mutual.
Ah, thank you, thank you. So where can we start? Let's okay. We titled this conversation "Dogs as Healers," because we both kind of know dogs as that, like the experiences that we had to endure
Mhm.
and live with dogs are really connected with that part of the dog spirit, like they heal us and they save us from sometimes ourselves. So um let's talk about your dogs
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that that you had.
yeah. I had or have, well, I currently have two dogs, and I had three dogs in the past. It all started with my first dog, who was called Noodles, and she was a Spanish mutt, a rescued dog from Spain, and that was, I don't know, 18 years ago, I guess. I might not have the maths wrong, but um, when I realized that I've got the time and the capacity to get a dog, I said to my husband, "Well, I would like to have a dog." And my husband was not very fond of the idea. He never had anything to do with dogs. And but it was something I said on the very first date with him, that one day I want to have a dog because
Aw,
we
he
had
knew
got,
then.
sorry?
He knew that
Yeah.
you.
So he knew it was not unexpected. And so he said, "Okay, then get a dog." And so I was looking for a very, very friendly dog, who for a beginner like my husband. And we found Noodles. And she was really, really nice and really lovely. And she loved every human being. She loved every dog. And she was so funny. And my husband fell in love as well. And she loved running around with dogs. So 2 years after we adopted her, I got another dog, of course, only after convincing my poor husband of that dog as well. So he more or less chose Scout. She's also a Galgo Espanol mix from Spain. She was found in a field in Spain somewhere with her brothers and sisters next to the dead mother. So hunting dogs in Spain are, yeah, probably lots of people, hopefully lots of people by now know of the plight of the hunting dogs in Spain. And yeah, the mother was a Gaga Espanol, and the litter, they were mixes. And so we adopted her as well, and the two, bless
Sorry.
you, the two got on very well together. And yeah, 3 years later after that, we also adopted another one. Actually, I told my husband that I would like to foster him. He had a very sore eye, And we had to. I said, well, we take him on as a foster dog, and we have the eye removed, and have a look if we can make sure he's healthy, and then we find a home for him. But only after a few days, for me, it was clear that we keep him because he was so cute. And so we had three dogs. We had to um, let Noodles sleep 3 years ago now, and she was nearly 15. And now I banned them from the room today because they can get really into the picture and sometimes be a bit of a hassle here. But Scout is 16 now, and Yoli is 13, so we are a bit of a senior home here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you've been, I mean, now your husband,
He
he,
loves them. Yeah,
yeah.
he absolutely loves them. He's even worse than me because when I, for example, visit him in here where he works in a cinema, everybody already knows all the stories of our dogs because he keeps on talking about the dogs all the time. So he's, yeah, even worse than me.
Oh, but that's amazing because I think that's also the power of dogs, that
Yeah,
they're like, "Hey, I'm here," and that's it. You just you you fall in love with them. I
yeah,
mean, I'm not sure if that happens to people that really have no, like, they don't like dogs. Like they say, like, yeah, I'm not a dog person. Like I don't know if they meet the right dog, like the dog for them, they change like their mind. I have no
yeah.
idea. But your husband was like, well, yeah, like in between, right? At first.
Yeah, it's not that he hated dogs or
No.
something, but all he had to do with dogs was that once in a while some dog growled at him or that he stepped into poo or something like that. So he thought that was a bit annoying, and why would you ever want to adopt a dog? And yeah, now yeah, the he pampers them even more than I do.
And how was that process of adopting them? Like it was in Germany or how was?
Yeah. Yeah, so we adopted them from foster homes here in Germany. So we didn't adopt them directly from Spain. We met them first because I wanted to meet the dogs first before I adopt them. And yeah, with Noodles, she was already so funny and she won over my husband's heart immediately. And Scout as well, um, Noodles was immediately in love with Scout, so that Noodles decided as well. Yeah, the third one was more or less little bit like a hard medicine for me, something like a bit of a comfort after a stressful time. Yoli, I'm not sure what I said now, but Yoli, the third one, was a bit like a bit of comfort. I want a third dog. And I want, yeah, even more dogs here. Yeah, but three is enough for us, really, because we pamper them quite a lot, and it's
Yeah.
also lots of work. And yeah,
3 dogs is it's a good number. We have five. I
okay,
think, yeah, we have 5 and 4 cats. So it's a lot of work.
yeah,
Um, but it's also like the company, it's amazing. And like
yes,
you never feel alone, or I don't know. It's a house with a dog or a cat or any sort of pet. I think it's full with like good energy, and it's amazing, amazing. Um, but I wanted to ask you. I mean, I've read your story in other places. But can we talk about that day, the problem with your husband, that your dogs found them and everything?
yeah. It's also the story I tell when I talk about how I got into photography because these dogs mean so much to us. They are not only family members, they are lifesavers, they are muses. Um, so when we had Noodles and Scout, we already had quite a tough time here with sick family members. We had taken on my mother-in-law. She had dementia, and that was already quite challenging.
Yes.
And my father died, and I had to take care of my mother as well. So I had already, or we had my mother-in-law and my mother to take care of. So I thought I have had quite a lot on my hands or together. And so I decided to start a one picture day project. And but shortly before that, on Christmas, the two dogs, and that was Noodles and Scout in those days, they started barking and howling, and it was really, really bizarre. I didn't know what they were up to. And we were together in my study, and I was working at the computer, and the door was closed. So they started barking at the door, and I let them out of the room and had a look where they go to, and they went straight to the bathroom door. And I heard that the shower was on, and I knocked, and my husband didn't answer, and I was like, oh god, what's happening here? And I went in there, and I found him unconscious in the bathtub, and the diagnosis was a severe brain hemorrhage due to a ruptured aneurysm. So that was now complete and utter chaos. And the dogs were the ones who saved him. We all also had great doctors, and the emergency doctor already did exactly the right thing, because I told him that my husband had a severe headache a few weeks before that. So we were really lucky in a way, but at that time but they brought him to the hospital, and he was in an induced coma for two weeks, and
Wow.
nobody could tell me if he'd survive it. And the dogs were my pastime, my only reason for the occasional smile. And one thing, so that was already very bizarre, very spectacular, that they
Yes.
sensed what was going on. Really don't know if
Sorry, it was there was a distance between yours to
there were
your.
two closed doors and a hallway between that. So, no idea if it was mostly Noodles who got agitated, but Scout also was really, really nervous, and I'm not sure if she heard something, but even if she had heard something, why does she know that there was some kind of danger? I don't know. And during that time when my husband was in this induced coma and nobody could tell me how this would end, that was so stressful. And Scout slept on my belly at night. She never did had done that before, and she never did that afterwards, because she's not very much into getting into the bed and having close contact while sleeping. Um, but she did that at that time every single night until my husband, I can't really now remember until when, but I think it was until the day he got his operation.
Wow.
And so she slept on my belly, and she's 25 kilograms. The head was here and the bottom was here, and she slept there the whole night. And it was very, very comforting for me. And yeah, so sweet of her. And yeah, that was amazing as well.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, as it's really it's interesting because, well, I was a caregiver also. My grandmother had dementia. My mother, since I was born, she was sick. So I've been um being a caregiver since I remember, right?
Mhm.
And so when you say that you had like several family members sick, and you it's really is too much. Like you need like I don't know. I think, well, for me it was hard for me to take care of myself
Mm,
when you're like in this chaos. And having a dog or a cat like this, that is a responsibility because they need to eat and have all their things like sorted. um I think that's like their way of saving us, because
Yeah.
then you have to eat too and you have to do stuff for you because people need you too. So it's really complicated, but so when I hear you saying that, I'm like, I was not the only one, because when you deal with those kind of things, sometimes you feel so, well, that's what I felt. I felt so alone in the situation, and I
Mm.
was like, nobody understands. Nobody,
No.
like, it's so hard. And then you meet people and you're like, oh, she knows. She knows how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So it's comforting to
Mhm.
know that you had your dogs, because
Yeah.
it's really, I don't know, it's for people that don't have dogs, it's hard to understand that
Yeah.
they are as good as another human being, just comforting you, right?
Yeah.
um so I'm really happy that your husband is okay now,
Yeah.
and
He's
your dogs there, because definitely they saved your husband.
yes. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I had to take them for walks, and I took my camera with me, and that's how I got into dog photography, because they were my favorite models. So they are lifesavers and models and motivation to go out, because that was a really bizarre time. My husband was in hospital, and later on he was when they woke him up from this induced coma, he had no short-term memory at all, and for weeks. And I visited him in the hospital every day, and it was so stressful. And when I got home, I had to take care of my mother-in-law, and my mother was having trouble, and the dogs were the only calm thing in my life, the only um, yeah, thing that made me smile and made me go out and enjoy some fresh air and walk, and yeah, even be creative. So they mean so much to us. It's you can't really put that into words. That's why I try to put it into pictures, to express it in pictures. And yeah, I never thought that this, yeah, who can imagine that something like that would happen? But and sometimes during that time, you were looking at people who were going on about their business and just struggling with very ordinary stuff, and you were like, oh, if they knew, they wouldn't care about that one now. And the dogs always, yeah, they don't think too much about what's happening. They just live in now and um, keep calm in a way. Yeah, it's amazing. They are really lifesavers.
Yeah, and yeah, that I remember, well, I didn't start photography as a pet photographer. I was doing fashion and just like anything that was involved with photography. I was like, yeah, there. And I remember that I had a photo shoot with a friend. His mother recently died, and he was like, I want to make like a tribute to my mother. She passed away because of cancer. And I was like, oh, okay. And he came to the studio and we were talking. And at that time, well, my grandfather is still alive, and he's like my whole life right now.
Mhm.
And my grandmother and my mother were alive at the time. And but I was so afraid of losing them. Like my whole life, that's been like my whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I asked him, and I was like, so what was the hardest part of saying goodbye to your mother? And he said that exactly same thing that you told me. He was like, it wasn't the day where when she died. It was the next day when I saw everybody just like doing their stuff and
Yeah.
get busy with small stuff, and my life was completely destroyed with something really big, right? And it was, the world didn't stop.
No.
And I
Yeah.
was, oh my god, and that stayed with me for so many years. And when my grandmother died, she had dementia for a couple of years, so it was really, really hard. Like the impact of dementia, like the people around the person that is suffering, it's it's so it's so hard. I think people don't understand how, like, the people that are around suffer. And
Mm.
it's, I think it's, I don't know, it's really hard. But what I was trying to say is that when she died, I remember the words of my friend, and I was like, oh my god, tomorrow is going to be a hard day because the world is just as it was, and for me everything changed.
Mm.
And um we had, I mean, we had our dogs and all that. And I remember that my partner, he was like, dogs don't, like, they don't have this thing that humans have, that we start like thinking and overthinking about things that are
Yeah.
happening in our lives, right?
Mm.
Because I was like, oh my god, so tomorrow is the funeral and I have to do this and this and this. And they were just like there, right? And I was like, I wish I could be more like a dog, because they
Yeah.
are like so calm. And when they have problems or issues with their health, they they just let them pass. Like
Yeah.
it's, I don't know, it's really tough when you have a lot of struggles with your family members or people that are really close to you.
Mm.
And um, but I guess we're lucky that we have our dogs.
Yeah. And that time, yeah, that's that time also taught me a lot about my dogs as well, because and about teaching my dogs or living with my dogs, because I was so frustrated and stressed and sad. And when I walked them and they were running around like they had no care in the world, and I was, yeah, I don't know, just very stressed. And when I then they started, for example, it was winter and we had a very, very cold winter at that time, and with minus 15 degrees
Mhm.
Celsius and lots of snow. And they started digging for beets and eating these beets, sugar beets. We live here in an area with lots of sugar beets and very fertile soil. And that really enraged me a bit because they didn't listen, and I shouted and they should come and they should stop that. And suddenly I realized they just sense my stress and they don't react to me anymore because I'm over the top stressed and uh, for them probably a bit mad at that time. So I just stopped and I thought, why are you shouting here? And so I stopped shouting and just, yeah, talk to them normally again in a way. And they, yeah, okay, what do you want? Here we are. So, um, yeah, that taught me to not let stress in any way get between my dogs and me. Um, because that's not their fault, and they just, yeah, ignore me when or ignored me at that time when I was too stressed.
Yeah. That's so, I think they also teach you about yourself then, because you said you
Yeah,
learn from them, but it was, I think it's also the other way around. Like,
yeah,
you suddenly see parts of yourself that you're like, why like, what's
yeah,
going on? And
yeah,
then they are teachers, they're everything.
yes.
But when you started with dog photography, you were a photographer before that, or?
Um, Well, I did this one picture day project and mostly with dogs. Well, at that time, when my husband was still in hospital, it was everything. Sometimes it was just as um, a long-term exposure of my feet and me turning around my feet to, yeah, do some abstract images of stress or whatever. And usually it was, but most of the times it was dogs. And since more and more people asked me if I could photograph their dogs too, I registered a business as a photographer, which was for me an unusual step because I studied something I thought was safe, secure. I was a technical translator and I worked as a freelance translator. And I never thought I would be successful in photography because it's something creative. I don't think I have lots and lots of talent. I just kept on taking pictures every day. And so, because often my models were dogs, I'm sure after a while, but that actually took ages for me because I wanted to spend more and more time with photography instead of translating. So I accept any job really. I did weddings as well after a while and portrait photography. And if photography was still my hobby, I would actually probably still photograph everything because I love photography in general. But during the pandemic, I decided to leave all the other genres behind. Yeah, it was mostly dogs now as well, and so I specialized in this commercial photography with dogs and cats. And yeah, that's what I do since then. I also canceled my website for human photography. Um,
Oh, that's
it's
a big
not,
step.
yes, it's not that I didn't like it. For example, photographing families in parks, and that was great fun. But I wanted to spend most of my time or all of my time only with dog photography and cats. The occasional cats. I should really photograph more cats, but sometimes I'm lazy. I have lots and
Yeah.
lots of dog models. And
So you had a camera home then
yeah,
before like
yeah. Even in analog days, I took photos, and once in a while, I try to get a bit better by taking more images. But it took me a while, and I stopped again because the results were not what I was expecting. And then in 2004, I guess it was, I bought myself a digital camera. And now it was easier to see the results immediately. And with noodles, and I got noodles in 2006. Yeah, probably 2006. Oh God, it's so long ago. Yeah,
like
2006, 18 years ago now. She was the first model I really enjoyed, so I took images of her. So I'm not a natural talent. I just kept on taking pictures.
you are. Of course you are. But how was the process of Noodles becoming your model?
She was into anything. She loved doing anything for interaction, for a play, for treats, especially, of course. She was a mix, and probably a mix between a Galgo Espanol and so a Sighthound, and maybe something like a Shepherd, with the friendliness of a Sighthound and the work ethics of a Shepherd. So that was a really, really great mix for just doing any kind of activity you want with her because she was always into it. For not for praise, maybe she wanted to get paid
All right.
in treats and
Great.
in a play. But she was a perfect model. Sometimes overly enthusiastic because you had to save her from risking her health just to pose on some um, don't know, tree trunk or whatever. So sometimes she was overly enthusiastic, but yeah, great model.
Oh, and you had a moment when you like saw the image, the result, and you were like, "This is what I want to do forever?
Mm, that's difficult. I have one picture that's one of my oldest pictures. It's my scout, and it's a reflection in water in a puddle on concrete with concrete around her. So that's in an industrial setting. And that's one of my absolute favorite images. And I remember that images like that really encourage you to come up with more images. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, and what was when you told your husband, like, I don't want to keep doing the translation and I'm going to get into pet photography. Tell me, how was it?
Well, my husband supported me, and I it's actually the switch was very slow because I kept on translating for quite a few years, and only after mm, 6 years, I guess, around 6 years, I stopped translating and only worked as a photographer. So I registered the business in 2011. Yeah, and in 2018, I guess I had my last translation project. And from then on, I only photographed. I never had, I never thought that that would happen, but so there was not really this. Now I stop doing this and start that. It
Right.
was. I'm always into safety.
Yeah, because I mean, you never know. But I guess dogs came to your life in a really subtle way, and they started just like being a part of everything at the
Yeah.
end, right?
Yes.
Um, you said something about cats because I've seen work of you of cats. How often do you have a cat in your studio?
I photograph cats for my licensing archive, so I can decide when I want to photograph a cat.
Okay.
I should do that more often. Once in a while, I do that, but it's really difficult. A few cats a year. I had probably, I haven't got a clue how many cats I had in front of my camera. That's so abstract a number.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely more dogs than
Hmm.
cats. Yeah.
And so you don't have private clients. You work mostly with licensing images and commercial.
Well, it depends. Until the pandemic, I had
Mm.
nearly only private clients. I stopped doing that for a while. I started again, and I do this occasionally. Let's say I'm what I do is I open my books sometimes, then I activate a site on my website to say I accept bookings now again, and I yeah, I choose a bit. You can decide. People can decide if they want to have these pictures as part of my licensing archive, and I so far I had nobody declining that. Um, and for that licensing archive, I can't use all models because, for example, there's some breeds which, yeah, might not be sellable, or which might be a bit like very short-nosed dogs, for example, might be a
Really?
problem. Yeah, here, for example, in some countries in Europe, the even breeding is not allowed and illegal, like the pug in the Netherlands. So that's a bit tricky. And since I can fully um, choose what I do put into my licensing archive, um, yeah, I choose a bit as well because of the breed. Um, that said, every mixed breed is accepted here in a way because I love mixed breeds.
Yeah, but in Germany there are breeds that it's like a
It's a bit
mm,
of a no-go. I don't think there are breeds, well, it depends very much. That's a long topic. Some breeds might be not allowed in some states of the, but
Oh,
those are breeds like so-called dangerous breeds. Here in my state, it doesn't matter. And I only on Tuesday I've got a dangerous breed in front of my camera. I don't care about that at all. But using pugs, for example, in commercial photography is a bit nowadays a no-go because of the health issues these breeds might have. So I try to not promote that. Oh, one
that's
moment. Sorry.
it's okay, don't worry. Um, it's really interesting because here in Costa Rica, they are really popular.
Yeah, they're public. Yeah.
Them, you see them in commercials and ads on Facebook, and they're everywhere. So it's
Mhm.
interesting that in Europe is the other way around, or they try not to promote that.
Yeah, it's a relatively new thing, but for a few years now, and I think there is something like a law coming that you can't use these breeds in commercials, um, and yeah, it depends on which country. There are lots and lots of differences between Denmark, Germany, United Kingdom. Um, Here in Germany, we have relatively lush laws when it comes to breeds, I would say. In other countries, other breeds might be illegal.
Huh. And do you have a lot of laws regarding animals or pets?
Which we are a very pet friendly country here. I think Germany might be very pet friendly. You can take your dog nearly anywhere.
Really?
Um, yeah, sometimes even restaurants. It depends on the restaurant. The restaurant can decide for itself if they want that. Um, and in the trains, and yeah, you can sometimes some city might oblige you to use a muzzle for your dog. That
Mhm.
depends on the city, so we've got strange laws depending on where you are. But I think we are very pet friendly, but we have to pay taxes for dogs. That's a bit annoying.
What do you mean?
Taxes. The state wants money from every dog owner. If you own, I had to pay taxes for three dogs, dog tax. It's something like an old-fashioned, a very a law which was invented many, many, many years ago as some kind of luxury law. Because when people can afford a dog, they can also pay money for that dog, and that's a bit of a it's a bit controversial here because you don't get anything in return for it.
Exactly. But what's like how they do that?
You have to register your dog. Yeah,
Oh, your
that's
dogs.
Germany. That's Germany. You have to register everything, and yeah, if you don't register your dog to the tax authorities or to the city, you might pay a fee if
Mhm.
they realize that, and then yeah, you have to pay for every dog, and that fee, that tax, also depends the price depends very much on the city where you live. It's a bit bizarre because one city might have 200 euros a year for a dog, and another city has only 50 euros a year for a dog, or whatever. We here in this city unfortunately have a quite high um,
But they like okay, this is I've we have that here, of course, because this is like the land of nothing. It's a disaster. But what's it's like you're saying that it's because it's a luxury to have a dog.
in those days. I don't know when it was
Oh,
invented, but I think it's a few 100 years at least, and so or more probably. And so in those days they said it's a luxury, so you have to pay. And they, of course, they also want to restrict the number of dogs in a city. buy that.
My God. So they don't charge different if you have certain breeds
As
or
well, sometimes, yeah, these so-called dangerous breeds might be more expensive, and but otherwise, I think that's the only difference. Only these dangerous breeds can be more expensive.
I've this is the first time that I hear it.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I guess it will make you more committed to your choice of having a dog because you
Yeah.
have to pay this tax, and it's like more, I don't know. I Do you have a lot of numbers of people just like abandoning their dogs in the street
Um,
like that?
yes, I guess so. Not We've got everything. Yeah, it's not that common to just throw your dog out of the car or just leave him somewhere in the field.
Here, here.
It does. People do that as well. Of course, everything happens.
Yeah,
Um, we have shelters, and especially currently, the shelters are full with dogs and cats because the people got themselves a pet during the pandemic again. This bloody pandemic started lots of things, so they got themselves a pet. And later on, when they had to return to work or whatever, they realized that they don't have the time and they can't afford it or whatever. It gets really expensive as well because here, for example, the vets increase their prices. So currently, lots of people abandon their pets. They just bring them to the shelters, and yeah, but it's might be worse in some other countries in Europe um, because for example, we don't have hunting with dogs. That's not allowed to do in Germany. Well, uh, you can do some kind of hunting, but I'm not really familiar with the terminology, so I'm not an expert with that. But what they do in Spain, for example, that they let the galgos chase behind hares, and that's a sport and it's tradition and stuff like that. You can't do that here in no way. So you can't produce dogs just for the fun of it or to use them only a few years and then abandon them. That would be illegal and not allowed. And so we don't have an industry like that. And also um, these greyhound races are not allowed. Commercial greyhound races are not allowed in Germany. So I guess we've got loads of laws, but some laws are also very, very good.
yeah, they're really good because, um, I mean, I do have the hunting thing for me. I just I guess I respect people that do it because they need to hunt their food. That's the only thing that I will just be okay with, right?
Yeah.
But for fun hunting animals, I don't know. I have a hard time with that. But because in the US is really common in certain parts of the country too, that they have these hunting dogs, and you get medals for that. And yeah, it's for me it's weird, but I guess it's normal for certain people. um in Germany, do you have like, because here in Costa Rica there's a lot of uh people breeding dogs in not the best conditions, just because it's a business, and a
Mhm.
lot of breeds are popular, so people really get into this certain type of breed. So there's a lot of people just doing this in
Mm.
really bad conditions. Is there like a law in Germany that you have to have certain conditions to breed a dog?
Yes, of course, there are breeders who don't care. And also, it's difficult to get by them. So if they do that, it's difficult to for the police or whatever the vets to make them stop. It's there are places which are even legal and sell puppies in a supermarket. So it's, for example, not forbidden to sell animals in these pet stores. I
Okay.
always thought it is forbidden, but it's not officially forbidden. It's just very, very um, not regarded as something you do by the population in general. So pet stores don't do that with dogs and kittens, but there's one or two who do that, and there are always a controversy because and it's there are laws, but there are always people who get by these laws. And of course, there are also bad breeders. And since the borders here in Europe, in the European Union, are open, we get as well lots of puppies from other countries where they just produce the puppies and sell them here because um, they look cute and people then say, "Oh, they're rescued," and no, they're not. They were produced, and
Yeah.
they enter here Germany in very bad conditions, and that's a trade as well within Europe. I'm not entirely sure where there are, um, but here in Germany, if the authorities hear about it, it's more difficult, I guess, to do that, to breed them somewhere in a don't know, under very, very bad conditions because it's not allowed to do that. But they just bring them here over the border and then they sell them.
And so when you say open border, you don't need like for example, if I live in, I don't know, Italy and I have my dog, I can cross the border and nobody's going to ask me for tests or
I don't too. That's a good question. Um, Not really. Nobody cares. You don't have to pay anything. Um, the only country, well, that's really not my expertise now, but no, we went to Denmark and nobody cared and nobody asked us anything. Um, when Great Britain was still in the EU, that was different because the United Kingdom is an island and they don't have rabies, and they were stricter, and you had to have a passport with um, vaccinations. I think officially you have to have a vaccination passport and all that. Also, when you want to get a dog from Spain, they have to be at least 3 months old because only with 3 months, around 3 months, I don't know, they have the necessary vaccination to actually enter Germany or go through France. But because nobody's really checking anything at the borders,
yes, I guess
um,
they have bigger problems.
sorry.
I guess they have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Check for
So these illegal breeding of puppies and selling them in very bad conditions, that's really a bit of a problem, and they go after it. But yeah, otherwise they might have other problems as well.
yeah. Do you travel a lot with your dogs? That you say that you went to Denmark?
In the past, yes. Now that they are old, not that much. In the past, we went to Denmark with the two girls. Denmark also has a different law than Germany. So we are the European Union, but every country can have its own laws. So Denmark decided, for example, to not allow the entry of any dog that might look like a dangerous breed. And
Mhm.
my third dog, when we got our third dog, he looks like a dangerous breed. So we couldn't go to Denmark anymore with him because they could just confiscate the dog. And even if the dog only barks at people. So that was a huge controversy as well. And people stopped going to Denmark and also to France. I couldn't go with this dog. It all, some people say, well, you just don't, well, if nobody asks, nobody cares. But I'm always a bit scared to get into trouble, especially if there is a law that people might just confiscate my dog. That would be an absolute nightmare. So we stopped traveling abroad with our dogs and just stayed here where nobody asks. And well, he is probably a Bardino mix, but he's got a bit of a bigger head and he is brindle. And then people immediately think that he might be a mix of whatever Staffordshire. And yeah, within Germany, you can travel quite well. You can book uh, a little house by the sea or by a lake
Uh,
with a fenced-in garden, and yeah,
oh
we
yeah,
did that
there's
as well.
it's a really, I mean, I guess in the last couple of years, the pet friendly thing, it's it's like well, here it's really popular. Like there's like really close to me, there's a shopping mall that you can have your dog, and it's full of dogs. Like everybody goes there with their dogs. So it's, I don't remember this when I was growing up, for example. For
Mm.
us, it was like the dog, it's outside, and they didn't have like a special food. It was just like the things, the leftovers of the family and stuff like that. But now the whole pet, let's say pet industry, but like the whole thing, it's so different right now because we there's a lot of people that see their dogs and their pets as family members.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same here. So um, we've got a huge industry when it comes to pet food and pet toys,
Oh yeah.
and people spend loads and loads of money on that. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's I mean, it's good to see that people really care about their dogs and their pets. And
yeah,
so, and of course it's good for us too because
yeah,
they want photos.
yes, exactly.
And is there like a project, like a personal project that you have right now, as you started with a personal project, that it was the
Yes, I'm working on two things. If I haven't got a deadline, I'm currently not the best at really finishing something, unfortunately. So I have two books I would like to write, and I sent out a book proposal to uh, two publishers, but it's super difficult to get a book published. So I should really send it to lots and lots of publishers. But sometimes, yeah, you have to overcome, yeah, this challenge to get another rejection. So,
you
but
said.
well, it's just I work on that and it's fun and I will send it out again and the other one as well. And only recently now I started working again on something I had started and I hope that I will get that out one day. But it's also lots of work and work gets in the way of work sometimes.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I was talking about personal projects with Craig, and it's really interesting to see how other photographers use their personal projects for like a creative outlet to
Yeah.
doing like some like different stuff out of their style, maybe the same thing. um do you work a lot outside, like when you, or maybe just like a as a hobby, like I'm going to go outside with my dog and my camera, because you
Yeah.
make you work at the studio.
Yes. So I'm known for my studio photography, but that was only an accident, more or less, because I thought studio photography was boring. So I just imagined bored dogs on cardboards. I wanted to be out in nature with dogs. And so I tried to come up with something I find interesting, and that was these expressions of the dogs.
Yes.
And since my dogs are too old actually to take pictures, at least they can't perform for my camera anymore. With 16, Scout is really, really not. She would do that, but no, you have to take care that she doesn't hurt herself. And the little one, the little one with 13, um, he was always the more difficult to photograph. So nowadays, I just contact people and say, "Do you have time? Let's take some pictures." So I do my personal projects with other people's dogs, and just do whatever I like, and that's hobby. And sometimes the occasional photo just as well ends up in my licensing archive. I really need these personal projects, or taking images for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that, because um, I try not to pressure myself to come up with something I could turn into some kind of money, but to photograph for myself and to do what I love.
Yeah, yeah, just because you love doing that.
Yeah.
And how was the studio photography an accident?
Yeah, I tried. I In those days, that was 10 years ago now, at least 10 years ago. I started with with studio photography in 2012, the first images. It was more or less at the beginning an available light studio, so I tried to come up with studio-like images. And in winter, I wanted to take images every day, and so I got myself a cheap pop-on flash, and so I taught myself how to use this externally with a small softbox. And so since I thought, okay, only a color in the background and a dog, I have to find something interesting. So I went really close to the dog's noses and took images of the dogs snapping for treats or licking or chewing or yawning. And I thought that was funny, and I put all the results every day on the internet. And in those days, I already wrote the occasional article for a website if somebody asked me. And I was on holidays, and a website asked me if they could feature my images. And I said, yes, please, but I'm on holidays. Please choose the pictures you like, how you do it. And I always wanted to show how versatile I am, but they chose only these funny studio images of my dogs, mostly in those times, with a black background. So that was 2013. And what I didn't know was that that website was huge. They had loads of followers. It was called Board Panda.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, nowadays they feature lots of things. They generate clicks, and in those days as well. But in those days, it was a bit more directed at creative projects. And I was also featured on This Is Colossal, a site I really loved, and it was they only feature design stuff. And I was so happy, and my pictures were featured on television, and for weeks they were featured everywhere. I was really lucky in a way, because I was one of the first, or I got that out there when not that many people did that.
Yes, exactly.
And then all of a sudden I was known as a studio photographer, because they've had only featured these studio photos,
Oh,
and those studio photos were out there. And nowadays, and later on, I really enjoyed it. But I accepted this as a challenge. So okay, now people think you're a studio photographer. Now we do that. And yeah, so nowadays I enjoy it, but I still love being outdoors with dogs. And for a while, I only showed studio images on my Instagram account, because I wanted to be very, very obvious with my niche and my specialization. But nowadays, I'm not that picky anymore. I, um, yeah, show whatever I like to show. And people, of course, book me for studio sessions, though I hardly ever get booked for outdoor sessions, because often enough they don't really know that I also take images outdoors. They
okay.
they
And
want to.
when you were doing your everyday picture project at the beginning, you didn't had like artificial light.
No, at that time, no, that came later on. Well, I did this project a few years. So I started it in 2011 on January 1st, but I did it again later on for 2 years in a row. Can't
Wow.
really remember which year
Great.
now. Well, probably 2012 and 13, or 13 and a bit later, really. So, yeah, already with that at that time I had a flash and very cheap equipment, and I usually have only one flash, for example.
Okay, and you didn't skip a day?
For 2 years in a row, I didn't skip a day. Yeah.
That because
Yeah.
that's really hard.
It is. And of course, sometimes it's just some abstract or something to try out a feature on your camera. And but I put them on the internet, every single image. Nowadays, I wouldn't probably do that, but my blog in those days, that was, if it was around 2012, I was not that known. So nowadays, I wouldn't show my experiments. But in those days, yes, I showed all of these images, and they were very, very different kinds of images, not only dogs, sometimes landscapes or people. Um,
Okay. Okay, you're just taking a photo every single day.
yeah,
Okay, and now that you mentioned that you were not well known back then, when did you realize, like, okay, I I'm well known? I don't know if it's like a thing, like a moment when you're like, okay, I'm being featured in a lot of places.
yeah. Um, that's always a bit difficult to say because in 2014, when lots and lots of websites and even television featured my images, that was, of course, I had people calling me and I did interviews for weeks. But that doesn't mean that you are the star of pet photography immediately for all time. Of course not. Next week, somebody else is the darling of the internet. And but my images appeared on Good Morning America, and they called me and asked me if they could feature my images, and I didn't know Good Morning America at that time, and I was, oh, American television, yeah. And I didn't know when they wanted to feature them, but I saw that all of a sudden. In those days, I was only active more or less on Facebook. I had an Instagram account. I think I started my Instagram account in 2012, but I didn't really post at that time on Instagram, only on Facebook, because at that time Facebook was more important. uh, And I saw that they featured my images because all of a sudden my Facebook page exploded with new followers. So that was Good Morning America is something everybody watches in America. I don't know. And so that was huge for me. But again, um, it's just one step in a way. It was great, a
Mhm.
great beginning. It was a great start. A year later, my images were featured again and again. Lots and lots of different outlets featured these new images. They contacted me. I think it might have been again Board Panda. I'm not entirely sure. Do you have new images? Because yeah, for them it's also great to have
Right.
success with that. And they featured it again. It was again quite a success. Um, and so step by step, every year, and by being persistent and showing new images and yeah, getting my images out there very very often. Um, that's why you don't really get around my images these days when you have a look on the internet. Um, but yeah, internet fame can be also volatile, so you have to make sure that you somehow don't rely on it, but work with it in a way.
Yeah, but you did feel like a difference.
Yeah, yeah. Step by step, yes, absolutely. At that time, especially, and I had people asking for prints, and I sold prints,
Okay.
for example, and they started buying images. They were a bit different in those days. not that different, but nowadays they look more commercial than in those days. And I have far more images nowadays, so people have more choice from my images. Um, but yeah, it was a huge difference as well. And yeah, it took me still 3 years or whatever, a few years to say I quit translating. But I'm also not the greatest business person. Other people would have probably done far more business with my success. But to me, this is all a dream come true in a way, and I want to enjoy it, and I want to do it as far as possible the way I like it. So I try to not stress myself out too much with things. Of course, I take it seriously, very, very seriously, and but I, of course, I could do something like tutorials. I could do a YouTube channel, be on a YouTube channel every day, and so, but that's not really what I want to do, even if I could make money from it. And so, being in front of the camera, for example, is not really that my favorite thing. So I prefer to take
Here
pictures of
for
dogs.
many years.
And yeah, as long as I can live from that, I would do that. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess well, there are a lot of photographers that are really good at the business part.
Yeah.
And but it's I don't know. I'm not really good about that part too. I'm more laid back in that
Mm.
aspect, and I focus a lot on the actual pictures. So sometimes it's kind of like not the best thing, but um, what do you like? Where do you see yourself? Like, where do you want to get with your photography? Because you want to keep working, as you said, like the way you like it, of course.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's of course luxury, and you never know if that's possible in the
right,
future.
right.
But yeah, that's a difficult question. I will diversify diversify again a little bit by going do pictures outdoors again. And if currently I can't complain, it works well. Currently, I actually have what I always wanted to. Um, I produce my images, I sell them, I license them, and I accept the occasional private session. I also had quite a time, lots and lots of time at the computer, and currently I got to the age where my body says, "Okay, this was a bit too much." Unfortunately, so this summer, for example, I try to take things a bit more relaxed because yeah, when you sit at the computer
Oh
all
yes.
all the time, I got an inflammation of the shoulder and stuff like that. So I learned that you have to move more your body, and yeah, I will diversify again a bit.
Okay. Yeah, being in front of the computer and not in front of dogs, it's
Yeah.
not ideal for us.
Yeah, editing pictures, writing texts. You spend far more time at the computer than actually taking images.
Yes, yes, that's true. And if you have like a big licensing thing like you, I guess putting all the information, it takes ages because there's a lot
Yeah,
of images.
yeah, but it's yeah, it's the best part of it really. Some people contact me and buy images, and the results are always very interesting, and sometimes a book cover or something like that. So I put years into this licensing archive, and I realized that I still have loads and loads of images which I haven't uploaded yet. So it's a bit stupid to just produce new images and not upload them to your licensing archive. So sometimes you, um, yeah, get occupied with things and you should actually do something else.
Yeah. And how do you work with your licensing? Like you have your personal one, you don't work with Getty Images or
No, no, I used to in the past, but they don't hardly give you any money from it, and they sell for peanuts. And
yeah.
no, I have my own licensing archive, and I don't sell for a low price. That's something I really learned. You have to say no, that's my price, and that's it. And if you don't want to pay that price, I'm sorry, then you can't have the image. And of course, then there might only be large companies who buy the images, but they don't even care. If they want that picture, they buy that picture, and that's what I'm waiting for. And it works for a few years now, and yeah, thankfully, I don't do business classes, for example, because all of this is also a bit of a miracle to me.
Uh,
um, because I'm happy it works, and there is always sometimes even maybe not a bit quieter month, and then there's all of a sudden again a supermarket in the UK who buys lots of pictures. Then that's great again. Um, yeah, maybe with artificial intelligence in the future that might be difficult, but then I have to adapt, and improve, and yeah, go in another direction again. But that's also the fun thing about these creative fields, because I do this for quite a while now, and maybe it is time for a change in some way when the shoulder is working again.
yeah. I mean, yeah, the whole have you, now that you say artificial intelligence, when you post in, I think it's only in Instagram that you have like made with AI, have you got that thing?
I
No.
don't think so. I've never seen it yet. No.
No, because I had that, like the Instagram tag one of my pictures
Uh,
as being like AI, and I was like, no, it's a real dog.
yeah, I
It's
heard that it might be the case when you used Photoshop, or that it's just a stupid bug or whatever. Because I don't think I ever had that. I didn't check explicitly, no, but um, yeah, I had somebody sending me a link to a text where some artificial intelligence text, which said that I am an artificial intelligence artist.
really.
I can't remember now. And people doing some tutorials about how to produce images in AI, which are in my style. And the results I saw were really not what I do.
That's, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a lot of photographers that are fearing like where this technology is going, but I don't know. I don't think we can. I mean, I'm not afraid, because I'm like, you don't want. It's a dog. Like when there's like a, let's say, artificial intelligence made dog, you feel the difference.
There
Like,
are quite great results nowadays, and I think that commercial clients won't care if the dog was.
yeah.
But sure, for owners, they want their dog to be photographed, and magazines and newspapers maybe as well. Who knows? Let's see. We all always have to adapt. Always. I always thought I could work as a translator for until I retire, and you can get a very good, mostly good translation from AI as well now these days. So every 10 years we should reinvent ourselves maybe these days.
Yeah, that's true. We have no idea where everything is going. So just adapt. Um, but Elke, thank you so much for an hour and 15 minutes of a great talk. Uh,
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate your time. So hopefully we talk soon again.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and goodbye to Costa
Thank
Rica.
you. Oh, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.